Another day, another pro guide dad. What's going on, GameLeapers? It is the Jizz back at it. And in today's video, we are going to be revealing the 15 best top laners of patch 11.5. So if you want to know which champions you have to pick so you can win your games, strap yourselves in for the next 10 or so minutes. Now in this patch, there are a couple of big changes to top lane champions and their items, which has resulted in a real shift in the balance of power. And the Jizz is here to keep you up to date on what these wacky changes are and what they mean for you and your favorite champion. Now if you want to master, guys, if you want to perfect any champion on this list, then you know what you have to do, right? Get signed up to the GameLeap website. We have the freshest and the best courses, guides, and videos that thousands of your fellow summoners are already using, so join the club. Links as always in the description and comment section. Alright, let's get into it. Starting us off, we have a champion who has been resurgent since the 11.3 patch, and in 11.5, he will continue to be a real nuisance, but also a real carry. So if you want to have fun while getting those W's, guys, Singed is a great pick. His win rate has gone up heaps in recent times, a few percent in fact, meaning he's gone from pretty trash to pretty good all of a sudden. The 10% extra AP in your queue is actually meaningful because it brings AP Singe back into play. So if you hate the turbo chem tank route, no worries, give this a shot. So you buy Rylai's Crystal Scepter first, and then Imperial Mandate is your mythic, and you see the AP you get from Rylai's guards gets put back into your buffed queue. The health is super useful, and the slow procs on your queue, of course, which is all great. And then with Mandate, you get it because it procs of the Rylai's slow from your queue, meaning it's super easy to mark an enemy champion, and this makes you way more valuable the later the game goes because you can become kind of useless, especially from behind. Now with Stridebreaker buff this patch, your hard matchups like Darius and Set, yeah, they've become a little harder, but on the whole, 11.5 Singe can be one of the best carry top laners. Now we can't have a top lane list, guys, without a few meatheads, and just ahead of Singe, we have a tankier champion who is one of the best team fighters and damage soakers in the game. So if you want to nullify that bruiser on the enemy team or mitigate every single bit of damage thrown at you, there are few better than SION. You see this patch as well, guys, 11.5, with bruisers back on the rise, you have one massive counter. The Bramble Vest. For just 800 gold, you get a good chunk of armor and 2 passives. The most notable one being the Grievous Wound. So yeah, if you're against a Darius or a Riven with a Doran's Blade and a half-bound axe or Iron Spike Whip, you are the ideal cuck. And yeah, not to mention your amazing setup and crowd control for all those Fiesta teamfights. There's a reason Khan, who is one of the best top laners in the world, picks this Juggernaut in pretty much every pro match he's in. He's OP. Now coming in next, guys, we have a champion making their debut into the best top laner series, and this may surprise some of you, so the Jizz is excited. Now you might think Nocturne is broken in the mid lane or in the jungle. Well, let me tell you, his highest win rate is when the Paranoia heads to the top lane. Seems pretty crazy, right? But here's why it's broken. Stride, Breaker, Nocturne. Like with anything this season, guys, the synergy you have with your items defines your strength as a champion, and this particular combination works wonders. A bit like when you guys like our videos, it's a deadly combination. Now the reason this is OP is because you are stickier than honey. When you Stride Breaker into a squishy enemy, there is no escaping your fear, there is no escaping your DPS. The movement speed mythic passive the SP gives you as well is really valuable because on a heavy roamer like Nocturne, you can get around more of the map and impress your lead elsewhere. This setup, by the way, has a 54% win rate in high elo simply because it's busted, so try it in your games and buy Asteris Gage and Guardian's Angel after the SB. Now ahead of Nocturne, guys, we have a champion who has been pumping out victories in the top lane for multiple patches now, and his playstyle, well, it's very chilled early on, but then when level 9 comes around, it's time to bring out the cane. So 11.5 Nasus, guys, just like in previous patches, is still very strong indeed. Now the Stridebreaker abusers are better off, there's no question, and typically these matchups, you know, Darius and Set, are hard. You're going to be on the receiving end, which is something the Jizz knows all about. There is a point in the game, usually at level 9, where you have enough stacks in the Sheen to fight back and dominate. What's also good is that your preferred mythic, Divine Sunderer, is safe from any nerf, so it's as good as ever. Gargoyle's Stoneplate is the same after it got buffed in 11.2, and the buff to Frozen Heart from 11.3 hasn't gone anywhere either. So once you escape the early laning phase, guys, and have points in your queue, you will be as influential on the Rift as League is in our lives. Okay, moving on to the 11th champion in our top lane countdown, guys, and we're going to stay with the beef. Well, he doesn't really have any flesh, so I guess that doesn't work. But yeah, if you're a fan of archaeology, this pick is for you. So if the enemy top lane has locked in a bit of AD and the enemy team has a lot of attack damage dealers, you cannot look past MALPHITE. And these champions who throw out attack damage and are relatively squishy, well, you're going to see these more often because Stridebreaker, as mentioned, is buffed, and Black Cleaver is also buffed. So naturally, if these are getting more action, you are too, because like SION, you can buy an early Bramble Vest and then your Sunfire Aegis, and you completely nullify that enemy threat. On top of that, in lower levels of play, guys, we know how oppressive the mouth can be because even to this day, no one can anticipate the unstoppable force. Maybe that's actually why they call it unstoppable. And you can clean house, so MALPHITE's still a great pick in 11.5. Right, we are now into the top 10, guys, and kicking us off, we have a champion who is going to froth the 11.5 buff to Stridebreaker. So as said, guys, yes, the extra range in the SP's dash is busted. This gives you way more kill threat in lane and more playmaking potential in teamfights, and I guess the bottom line is that there is very little counterplay to it. So if you want to jump onto the enemy AD carry, nothing is really stopping you from giving them a quick 1-2 and KOing them. Now, Zed is also one of the few bruisers in the game who can destroy tanks. So if you think of MALPHITE and SION, who the Jizz has already mentioned, because your Q and R deal damage based on the target's maximum health, you can just pick them up and drop them on their head for an absurd amount of damage. Now, reason you're not higher on the countdown is the fact your biggest counters like CAMILLE and Wukong are still strong, and you can't ban both, so in some games you are going to have to cop it. Nevertheless, guys, still one of the best top laners in the game is Zed. Alright, so you're not a fan of Zed or Singed or tanks, but you still want to 1v9? Well, it's your lucky day because the Jizz has something special in store. It's Riven. A 55% win rate, guys, and high elo tells the story. If you can master her, you are going to be exiling your enemies. You get it because Riven is called the Exile. Alright, yeah, guys, I don't care if you're on 4, Gold 4, Diamond 4, Challenger, the 11-3 buff, which reduced your E's cooldown at all ranks, has put Riven back into major contention for the top laner's spot. You see, this buff, guys, was massive. And think about this. Ability haste has always been the key stat on Riven, and with Gore Drinker, which gives you a flat 20 ability haste, and a mythic passive, which gives you an extra 5 haste for each legendary item, your E can be on close to a 3-second cooldown in the mid to late game. Now, most games in lower levels of play last a lot longer than games in higher reloads, so getting to 3 and 4 items and taking advantage of this passive is very doable. Speaking of your 3 or 4 items, get a Gore Drinker, guys, Ravenous Hydra, Sterics Gauge, and Boost for Lucidity. Your damage and cooldown is off chops, as will be your carry potential. Just make sure you auto attack when you're comboing. Now, coming in next, guys, at number 8 is a champion who was the best top laner on the Rift at the start of Season 11, and he's still really strong, just not quite at that Giga OP level. So Wukong, guys, is, still one of the best top laners in the game, and despite the nerfs to Gore Drinker, Ravenous Hydra, and Sterics Gauge in 11.3, little has really changed. Now, one of the big advantages you have as the Kong is the fact that you can build Trinity Force or Divine Sunderer as your mythic and be just as impactful. So if you're snowballing, you can buy Trinity Force. If you're against bruisers and tanks, Divine Sunderer, it's easy for you to make use of the sheen damage via your Q, and your kit is designed to destroy the most popular top laners. So Darius, Set, FIORA, CAMILLE, GAREN. So whatever elo you're in, the Monkey King is still reigning supreme. I should also point out here, guys, that the Black Cleaver buff, you could build it into squishy top laners and teams, but most top laners you see are going to have plated steel caps and a bit of tankiness somewhere, so the movement speed the BC now gives you is, just less reasonable. Now, this next champion, guys, after receiving arguably the biggest nerf of all time in 11.4, well, this did as much as lips on a woodpecker. So for CAMILLE, guys, 11.5, you are still going to be one of the premier top lane champions because what makes you OP is all still there. Your Q's true damage, for example, your mobility and lockdown, and it's not like AD carries got stronger, so you can one-shot them like you've been doing thus far in Season 11. Now, you might be asking, why is CAMILLE only number 7 then, Jizz? Well, your hardest matchups are still as strong or got stronger. Riven, for example, was buffed recently, Wukong is still hard, and Darius is going to benefit from both the Strikebreaker and Black Cleaver buffs, so even harder. Now, the 11.4 nerf that saw your W's cooldown increase by 2 seconds at each rank hasn't changed anything, and you could very well make a case that the Steel Shadow is the strongest top laner in 11.5. Right, so you guys want to counter to all of these bruisers and fighters, yeah? Well, I tell you what, if you smash that sub button and the bell after it, the Jizz will give you the champion to do just that. So coming in at number 6, guys, is QUINN, and yes, if you're sick of having to play against Strikebreaker sets and Trinity Force Camilles, well, this champion is a must-have in that champ pool of yours. And the reason why is your absurdly strong laning phase, especially against these champions with engaged like Jax, CAMILLE, Riven, these popular top laners, you can just vault away and then bring even more pain to the fight. Now, another strength QUINN has, a bit like Wukong in this department, is that you have a large choice of mythic items. You can go Gale Force if you need some extra mobility, you can go Prowler's Claw if you want to really snowball with the lethality, you can go Kraken Slayer to bring down tankier champions, or you can abuse Immortal Shield Bow for the lifesteal and sustain. So with the increase in play rate of bruisers this patch, guys, honestly, QUINN is low-key, well, I guess it's high-key now because she's on this countdown, one of the best top laners going around. Alright, we're into the top 5 top laners for 11.5, guys, and before we send it, one last friendly reminder from the Jizz to check out the GameLeap website if you want to get to Challenger, helping you improve, guys. It's what we do. So for guaranteed success this season, get your fingers moving and click on one of the links down below. Okay, starting off the top 5 is a champion who got buffed last patch and will be even stronger this patch. So if you want the ultimate 1v1er, guys, then FIORA, you can't really beat her. Now, the reason she will be stronger this patch isn't because Strikebreaker got buffed or because Black Cleaver got buffed. It's the fact that some FIORA players out there aren't abusing the most OP build on her. They're still building Strikebreaker or Gore Drinker, even Trinity Force in some cases. Guys, it's time to stop, and it's time to start building these items. Essence Reaver first, then Immortal Shield Bow, I know it sounds pretty weird, and then Ravenous Hydra. Now, the Essence Reaver is prime because your Q can apply sheens on hit. The mana sustain is actually really useful in lane, so you can can spam your spells, the critical strike chance empowers your E, and the ability haste gives you more trading and outplay potential. That's a lot for one item, isn't it? And it only costs 2,900 gold. Now shield bow, as I'm sure you all know by now, is great for the lifesteal, the attack speed, and the lifeline passive, so you are close to unbeatable in a straight up 1v1, and then Ravenous gives you the Omni Vamp and extra damage you need to smash through multiple enemy champions while staying healthy. Don't just take it from the jizz, guys. Get in the game and try this out. It is nuts, and that's why Fiora is number 5 on this countdown. Now you're probably thinking, how can anyone beat that? Well, I've got 4 champions, and the first of these 4 is a champion that has skyrocketed to the top of the win rates because of a certain buff in 11.4, and his power is increasing this patch because of the Stridebreaker and Black Cleaver buffs. So if any of you play URGOT out there, you will be pleased to know that 11.5 is even juicier. Now the buff in 11.4 that increase your W's on hit damage, meaning that items like Titanic Hydra, Black Cleaver, Blade of the Rune King, Manamune, Kraken Slayer, you know, your viable major items are way more effective. This is why some URGOT players have started rushing Titanic Hydra, because not only are the stats amazing, but also the on-hit damage when you press W. Now remember guys, that as URGOT, your biggest weakness is getting kited. Well, this major problem doesn't even exist after you get a Stridebreaker and Black Cleaver. How good? You have a bigger gap closer with SB and more movement speed with BC, so you can stay with your enemies, and if you have that W going, champions are going to explode. So 11.5 URGOT guys, as strong as they come. Right, here we go, the top 3, and coming in at number 3 is another Stridebreaker abuser who is not only strong in lane, but an absolute weapon in team fights too. Like Set and URGOT, the fact Stridebreaker's active has more range is big for your engagers and chasers on GNAR. And yeah, the fact you're a ranged champion as well lets you bully all those popular bruisers in lane like Darius and Fiora. You also excel against tanks because your third hyper attack, which is your W, deals more damage the more health your target has, so you can chip away at it better than anyone. So 11.5 now guys is right up there, just make sure to hold your E in lane and ban Aurelia. Now the runner up guys to the best top laner of 11.5 is another Stridebreaker abuser. Who saw that coming? And yeah, this patch I tell you, if you don't pick or ban Garen, you have lost the plot. The Gaz was already boasting one of the highest win rates in the top lane, especially in lower elos, and now with twice as much range in the Breaker's dash, like what is going to stop you? A little bit of CC here, a little bit of CC there, it's like water off a duck's back. You can charge in with that Q, Stridebreaker into that silence, Beyblade for a bit, I mean you probably don't even have to, and then just that's a kill. So for the amount of effort you have to put in to pop off in 1v9, Garen is by far the best champion in that sense. He's a lot easier to make work than other top laners on this list who take a lot of time to master like Riven and Fiora, so if you're just a casual or just a fan of winning I guess, 11.5 Garen guys, well, there's only one better. And this champion, the number 1, the Jizz is going to throw some clues at you, and your task is simple. You have to guess who the champion is, so here we go. You better hope your white blood cells are at the ready. This patch, Stridebreaker is buffed, which you've heard a million times in the last 10 minutes, so that means I am too. Like URGOT, my weakness is getting kited, especially in team fights. Well, this fixes that problem, and now no one is safe. Oh, and Black Cleaver is buffed as well, so if the Stridebreaker buff wasn't enough, the movement speed in particular is what I'm interested in, because before, yeah, there's a chance I still get kited, even with Stridebreaker, but with Ghost and the new BC passive, like who's getting away? Now, I am one of the most banned champions in the game, and in this patch, there's even more reason to put that red line through me in Champ Select. Guys, the number 1 top laner and champion of 11.5, and grats if you got it, is of course Darius. As always, thanks so much for watching. Any thoughts or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. This has been Coach Cheese, and until tomorrow's upload, peace.